there was a presentation by Tara Didrikson and Tito Sierra at Haystack Conference 2019. Both are from LexisNexis at that point. And so they made a case for human relevance testing. And essentially, they selected like a number of building blocks or sort of that define the process of relevance testing. And you can see those on the screen. So it's selecting and managing raters, selecting the test queries, which essential how representative they are. And then as you assign the tasks, you also want to then collect the ratings. You also want to generate certain scores because if you don't generate any number, then you don't know how well you are doing and where you should be moving, right? So generating a number of scores will give you more confidence to iterate on the search quality. And then last but not least, you want to analyze these results and communicate them in your organization across a number of departments. Yeah, and I think today we will cover this latter three, right? So in Quepid, and we will show you that live, hopefully. You basically can, you cannot select and manage raters as of yet. You cannot select as queries, like there are no, there is no support yet in Quepid, but maybe at some point it will be there. But you can collect ratings, you can generate scores, you can analyze, and that's hopefully what we will also be talking today, and then communicate the results, right? Well, probably not inside Quepid, probably outside Quepid. Yeah, I mean, in terms of maybe Eric, you want to take this slide? We talk about motivation.
So I think, Quepid is kind of in this burgeoning area of different open source tools around improving search, right? And I think maybe what I should do is just kind of do a quick demo of Quepid of like the simplest use case. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And I am going to try and share Firefox. There we go. So y'all can see my London Information Retrieval demo. So I'm just going to walk through and I am going to demonstrate the life cycle of improving some search. I am pointing it at a Solr with TMDB, the movie database, right? That data set that a lot of you may have seen. And I've got a title, my ID, what fields. I'm going to grab a vote count. Okay, bring that data in as well. And I am going to look for the movie Star Wars. Okay, that's what I'm going to tune. Here we go. So here I go. So here is a case, and I have done a search for Star Wars. Let me actually see if I can precision. Where's my precision at 4? It's a super simple score. And what this lets me do is look at a query, right? And here is my data. So the stars of Star Wars, is that what I'm looking for? No, right? We can have a separate discussion about the importance of documenting and information need, but these are lots of things related to Star Wars, but these are not the Star Wars movies, right? I'm interested in the major motion pictures. I'll give it Clone Wars. That was good, but the rest of this looks pretty, this is just documentaries and other things related to Star Wars, right? So I've gone through and I've rated it. Wow, that is pretty terrible search results, right? Nothing in the first 4, precision at 4, is what I am looking for. But I have an intuition. I believe that if I was maybe to boost on the vote count, maybe I'd get better search results. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on my ampersand def type equals edismax, ampersand boost filter. And I'm just not going to do anything fancy. I'm just going to boost on vote count. Okay, let's see if I made my search better. I'm going to rerun it. Well, I get a frog, which means hop to it. I have unrated documents. So this guy is telling me, well, I can't tell you whether this score is better or worse because I have unrated documents. However, is The Force Awakens what someone is looking for when they're on Netflix or wherever and looking for type in Star Wars? Definitely. Hey, there it is, right? Our #2 hit is Star Wars. Uh-oh, wah, wah. We got the Truman Show. So not what we were looking for, but oh, Rogue One, I love that one. And we can keep on looking down here, The Last Jedi. That's not a good search result. We can go through and we can rate them. And if I scroll up here, you can see I've now improved my search result from a 0 to a 0.75. And that's what Quepid is all about. This life cycle of rating documents and then measuring. So that's what I wanted to show you. However, one of the things that you may, anyone who's maybe used Quepid in the past or knows, is that was just me rating those documents, right? And, query for Star Wars, it was pretty obvious, right? Pretty easy. But in most situations, there's some ambiguity. I don't know, Dmitry, were you going to show some more slides or where were we going with this?
There's one slide that we have. So yes, so essentially what Eric just showed you is that you basically have an interface where you can have like a single person, going through the query, going through the case and rating. But very it's quite fundamental to also have some overlap, right? So let's say you may assign several raters to the same case, even to the same query, and that depends on your use case. In some cases, it could be a query that you really care about. Maybe it's a query that has a low CTR, and you really are not sure, if one person will give you enough information to be confident. And so what you would like to do is that you would like to add several raters, distribute the task, and then have an overlap and see how well the ratings correlate between each other. And there is a number of ways how you can compute the what's called inter-annotator agreement. In this case, it would be inter-rater agreement. So maybe we should coin a new term. But you can basically compute the well-known, statistics like kappa or Pearson or Krippendorf's alpha, and the list goes on. And it also depends on your use case, whether you will have a couple of raters only, or if you will have like a number of raters, more than 2. And yes, in Quepid, you have different levels that you can consider the agreement level. So for instance, you have like individual document level, right? So you can say, okay, for the document 1, how do raters agree or disagree on that? You can also say, roll it up to the query level potentially, and then even to the case level where you'll have multiple queries, right? So, and maybe it would be really, really cool to hear your feedback, the audience, the feedback from the audience, on which level you would like to consider these metrics. But maybe even in the future, we could compute, like rater confidence level. So like sort of like experience level of the rater. If it's like a rater who doesn't have experience or is experienced and sort of bored. So I think there is a number of ways we can definitely slice and dice this. Let's do an interactive demo. Let's work with the audience.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, real quick, Dmitry is going to show you some ratings. If you are comfortable, we have. Let me grab my links. We have this code deployed in a branch, and this is hosted on in our staging environment. So I'm going to drop a link there. If you go there, it'll prompt you to either log in or sign up. If you do that and then drop your email address here in chat, I'll be able to add you to this case. I hope this is all okay. But I can add you to this case, and then you can do some rating on these. And it would be interesting to get some other people's ratings and see what happens when you get lots and lots of raters rating the same few documents. So.
Yeah, that will be fun. So feel free to join, register, and I'm having the same link on the screen. So
yeah. So while we're here, do you want to walk people maybe through the little UI elements in there while I add people frantically in the background?
For sure. So it's very similar interface to what Eric was showing, but there are a couple of differences, or a few differences here. So, well, you have your queries. The first one is The Martian. It's actually my favorite movie. And then the Star Trek here. And so what I did is actually, I'm in my individual mode, just because there is another one, and I will talk about it. So here you can see that well, first of all, I saw the movie, probably as you. And so my favorite Martian is not the movie. And basically as many of these on the screen. So I gave all of them a 0. And Star Trek is doing a little better. So I haven't seen all the movies in Star Trek, but I think many of these make more sense. And so here we have these interesting dots. So let's see if it pops up. Yeah, so I hope you see that. They say query variance, 0.073. So it's like, basically it says that it's kind of like uniform. So there is no variance of the labels because, well, essentially what I did is that I gave a 0 to all of them, right? And for Star Trek, let's see what it says. So here on the second query, you can see it says 0.187. So it's actually higher. So the variance is higher. Why? Because the labels have certain variation here. So they are not exactly the same. It's not like a uniform set. And so, okay, cool. And then we have a case level ratings variance. So here it says none. So I don't think we computed it, but this is again maybe a point where you guys can give us feedback whether this will be useful, because in Quepid you also have a scorer which tells you, how well you're doing on a set of queries, right? So 2 queries add up to an DCG at 10 score, and that equals to 0.33. So that's like a normalized discounted cumulative gain score. So we could also potentially compute like a variance across, roll up across the queries.
All right. Anyone else signing up? Terrific, thanks. So yeah, so as Dmitry's kind of clicking around, if you guys can do some ratings of what you think are good and bad results for those movies.
I guess you guys can, rate these queries. Wow, there is some change. And I actually noticed that I switched the view. So there is a new button here, which says change the view of ratings for this case. And previously I was in the individual view. And so I could only see actually, does it like reload?
So when you do that, I would reload the web page though after that. And now, so if you're an individual view, you can actually do your own ratings, right? So you can score your own documents and you're only doing yours. And then when you switch to consolidated, you no longer can change the ratings because you're you're looking at a blend of everybody's ratings, right? So
And here we get the
which is a
numbers
little
changing.
yeah, and if you open it up, you'll still see the search results, and that's those numbers there are a rounded. So awkward in Quepid is that you have to have a whole number in your rating scheme, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if one person picks 1, the other person picks 0, I add them up, divide them by 2, and then round it. So it either becomes a 0 or a 1, but not a 0.5 that you would expect. So there's still some on those individual ratings. That's why we have, so there's still some work to be done in figuring out what to do, right? When you have disagreeing people, maybe a bubble, maybe there needs to be at the query doc, a bubble that says everybody agrees that this is a 2, or only some people think, what level of agreement there is at that level.
Yeah, so that's the document level agreement here, which we could pop up as well.
Yep, so absolutely. So that's kind of the UI. Now, for people who've used Quepid in the past, they all know that you can have multiple people who share a team and share a case, and you're all rating the same query and document pair. And we'll continue to support that use case, because sometimes you have 3 people rating different portions, but you want to see them all. So still a lot of work to be done on this, but this is why we wanted to get in front of people and start getting some feedback. So
yeah, absolutely. So I think people are still rating because I see some changes.
Okay.
The bar goes down and then back up.
Yeah.
Good.
So
you could almost have like
it might also be, is it also because you're switching between consolidated and individual? And so I could imagine, if when you switch between, hit update and now reload the web page, so we rerun all the scores, because I think that might also be, you're seeing it go up and down because the way you've scored everything, the score is a 0.5, but if you average it out across everybody's ratings, it's a 0.64. So, and that's using NDCG, so at 10. So,
yeah, and now we also started to see the case level rating. Previously it was none, and now we see 0.26.
Right. So still a fair amount of variance among all the judges or all the raters. So do we want to bring up the detail page? Are we ready to look at that, Dmitry?
Yeah, let's do that. So I think I could click here, right? This is clickable bubble. And I can open an analytics page.
Hey, look, we got more people rating. Oh, wow. I was curious what this web page would do with a bunch of people rating, because we've only ever had like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
So this top half here is kind of very detailed, right? Like we're looking at the ratings made by everybody. I think as you do the rating, Alessandro, it is doing it, right? There's no save, you're just changing them. So in fact, if you start rating the Star Trek queries, Alessandro, if we reload this web page, we'll see those not a numbers change to ratings, whatever you're rating. So in here you can kind of see a query doc match. So for every what the variance is. So the Martian, and we have the doc ID. We ought to put the title, not in retrospect, right? That would have been nicer, so we know what their rate, what they are, what people agree or disagree on, right? And one of the things that we've been messing around with is like, how do we handle unrated documents? And I think right now we're just sort of filtering them out, and then if they get rated, they'll be included in this whole variance calculation. So like user unknown is like the unknown user. Like if we just don't have a user account or someone uploads data. And then what else is interesting in this if you scroll down?
Yeah, we have this pie chart. Well, I think it
doesn't do anything.
Just shows you the split, doesn't do yet anything, and then the data frame. So yeah, here you can see the variance levels, query doc.
Oh, we do have a
variance.
column query text. So it might be way over on the right. Oh, no, query text, but not doc ID.
Not the doc title, sort of. Yeah, we could have
Oh, yeah, we should have done that. So
configured.
Yeah, and then NDCG at 10 is 0.91. I do not know without looking. Like, there's been a lot of debate about global scores. So, like, is it the local NDCG where you're only looking at the top 10, or do you also include other documents that were rated, right, and pull them in? Yeah, and it's honestly kind of gone back and forth. And so I think a lot of people end up writing their own JavaScript NDCG that does exactly what they think NDCG is, because everybody's got a slightly different opinion. So
yeah, and same goes for DCG itself. You can also compute it in a number of different ways. You can also change the base for the log, and then it will produce a different value. But yeah.
In fact, I sort of wish that there was more cohesion in the community about this is what it is, right? And we all use the same thing. So that data frame 2 is showing our query means are not a number. I think that means that we have a bunch of, not exactly sure how that math was working, but I think if we have a bunch of unrated documents, it wasn't necessarily filtering them out. So
yeah, I think we have a lot of none still here, right? And
so which made that not
variance just doesn't it doesn't roll up.
Yeah. So yeah, 0.91 I would assume have a lot of very highly rated documents turned out. Yeah. Totally agree with that. So yeah, so I don't know, questions, comments on this? I mean, you know, as you can see, it's kind of work in progress. We still don't have the export, like little stuff like exporting and importing. We haven't thought about like, how do you track the users and import and export the data with a user ID? I literally found I made some enhancements to deal with the not in numbers better in the last 2 hours before this talk, but Dmitry convinced me that I shouldn't push untested code to our demo branch right before the presentation. So so I'll push that right after the presentation, because I'm curious to see what happens if it fills in some of these not in numbers. I think we tried to like filter out not in numbers, but
yeah. I just thought it's better to deal with the known bugs rather than to deal with unknown bugs.
Yes. The unknown bugs that make me nervous though. So yeah, so this is, I think, kind of where we are with this. So yeah, and so coming back to this UI, the goal of the this UI here is that the colored dots, which I shamelessly ripped off GitHub's UX, is supposed to tell you whether you can trust things or not, right? So, and I don't have a good sense yet of, do we want them everywhere? Do we want them at the case level, right? So if I was to look at this and say, I got a 5.9 for these two queries, but look, it's got a yellow dot. What that suggests to me is maybe my judgments are kind of all over the place and I can't really trust them, right? Maybe I need to go and do some more training with my raters. Maybe I just need to go out and get a bunch more ratings so that they all kind of float to the same place. But yeah, that's sort of the ideas here, because I do find that with like ratings, sometimes I'll make decisions and then later on look and be like, oh, well, that's weird. You know, I was making an assumption that these ratings were good or bad, you know, and they weren't. So.
Yeah, I think, Eric, this also goes back to how you communicate with other teams, because like, for instance, in my case, I have an external team of raters, and they also rate in multiple languages, which I don't speak, you know, like Turkish or Spanish. And so when I sort of give them the task, they always ask me like, okay, how do you define relevancy? Like what's relevant, what's not relevant, right? Like, should we just use our own gut feeling, or should we follow some kind of guideline? And it's better if you follow guideline, because then you can iterate on the guideline, but coming up with the guideline, it's a separate story for sure.
Yeah. And then how well, like, is this new person who joined following the patterns of everybody else or not? So yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely find that when I'm rating documents that have already been rated, like if I have 10 documents for a query and 5 of them are already been done, I'm very shaped by, I look at what the 5 that have already been done and then I rate accordingly. Good, bad, I don't know.
Exactly.
But so
yeah. Yeah, and I think this is where, you know, there's different kappas, or these different correlation metrics will come in, because they also give like a different level of sort of confidence, and some of them are geared towards only a couple of raters, right? So you have at most 2, but some of them work as well for M raters. But yeah, you probably need a combination of different metrics.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear some wisdom from the
what
audience.
have other people done?
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like I'm swimming upstream, like nobody wants to do human rated judgments, which I thoroughly understand, right? You want to do it off click logs, you want to do it off analytics, you want to do it off something else. But I also find that human rated judgments is often pretty easy to go get and do and get started versus a big project to go look at click logs and shape, you know, make implicit judgments. So.
Yeah, actually with Quepid, what I love is that it kind of plugs in to the search engine, right? You don't need to write a fancy UI to do things, and sort of like, you can like demo this to anybody, like a product manager, a software engineer, maybe a non-technical person as well to some extent, right? So you could say, okay, this is what I'm experimenting with here. Because remember, there is a tune relevance sandbox that you, Eric, showed earlier, with a bunch of parameters that you can modify. And
hey, Danny, I'd love to hear your comments, or questions. I know you looked at it a little while ago.
Danny, you should be able to unmute yourself now and ask, or just observe your
sorry,
comments.
guys. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I was typing the questions, but okay, I can speak up. Yeah, one of the comments I have is that well, you know, I'm interested in having support for search templates on Elasticsearch. And we already discussed that topic in the past. And the other one is that well, we are using Quepid right now, and we are seeing that when you start typing a lot of search queries into a case, the performance goes down heavily with 500 search queries. So yeah, well, that's part of the comment.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. I mean, you know, like I know one person who has 1,000, but they run it every day. And they evaluate it every day, like just, you know, a little bit of change, right? Just to kind of stay on top of the drift. But when they start the Quepid app up, they go get a cup of coffee and it just sits there and it's like 1, 2.
Right.
3,
it takes a long time
4.
to run. Yeah.
And when you go to 1,000, it's really long. And I kind of agree, like the app, because it's running in your browser and it's doing all of this, like hitting your search. You know, 500 queries, you're definitely, I don't really know what to do. One thing I will say, that's one of the reasons that's one of the strengths of like RRE, is that because it is all server side, right? Alessandro could tell you more. You know, it's a lot easier to, you know, it's not limited by the, I'm running in your browser, I'm storing all the documents, the return documents that's in the browser, right? It's a little more streamlined. So there is a point where it does start to break down. I don't know whether that point is 250, 500, or 1,000. But I'd love to do some things. I mean, I know JavaScript's getting better and better and better, right? Quepid is a kind of old Angular 1 app, and I do suspect if we could move some of this to more modern JavaScript framework, it would also just handle more data better. So
Right.
because
Yeah,
all
and
that
also I think
interactivity is painful.
I think we could
Yeah.
also add like lazy loading feature. Of course, you know, pull requests are welcome.
Yeah.
But as you paginate, we could like load at that point. But yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
there's like
know
a-
Solar
Mhm.
very well, but in Elasticsearch there is a feature called rank eval that you can
Mhm.
run all the queries in one request, so you don't have to run all these queries again and
Oh,
again, right?
right. Yeah, that
But you
would
can,
make sense.
right?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. I mean, a lot of the lazy stuff is hard because like that Q score at the top only makes sense once you've loaded all your queries. So,
Yeah,
so
right. Thank you, guys.
no, definitely. That's
Yeah,
a great
thank you.
feedback.
That's
So, yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Thank you, Danny. Perfect. So, Eric, Dmitry, do you have anything else to add, or we can go through the questions?
I think I mean, this is kind of what we wanted to show, right? Because Dmitry and I are both like trying to get more feedback from the community. And yeah, there you go, right? Like we're looking for more feedback from the community. How would this be useful? Would people adopt this? You know, and yes, it's there, you know, human rated judgments, you know, that's a, you know, the set of people who do that, you know, would it be useful to people, and what would we need to do? So that's really why we wanted to come and present today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
so-
mean, the feedback could be kind of like from all angles. One is like what kind of like analytics or statistics you might need. The other one is like UX, right? So with multiple raters, you probably want like some UX polished on the edges here and there. So what's the minimum set of features that will make you happy in the multi-rater view and comfortable enough?
Yeah. I think the last thing, I don't know, Dmitry, if you wanted to show off the jar jar analysis.
Yeah, so jar jar is like, it's also a repository here, open source by open source connections. So basically it allows you to play around with these different, you know, metrics like Fleisch Kappa, I guess even more. There was in Krippendorf as well.
Allo and yeah,
Hello, yeah.
But if you scroll to the
Yeah.
bottom, I mean, you know, some of the visualizations that are in here about agreement, right? Agent 1, Agent 2, Agent 3, right? How much was their agreement? You know, this is sort of, I think, what we're trying to get, but instead of one-offing it as a Python notebook every time, you know, basically be able to look at a case in Quepid and be like, oh, look, you know, okay, everything looks good. I can trust what this case is telling me. Or, oh, we're all over the place, I can't trust it.
Yeah, especially like if this something that you can access as the rating goes on, right? Like, and then you can say, okay, this is just goes, you know, not the way I want it. Maybe I should, you know, kind of pause it and call to my team, and maybe we can go through. This is what usually I do actually. Like, and I'm curious to hear how you guys handle this, but like I monitor how my team is progressing on the task, and then they usually don't ask many questions. And so then I can monitor and ask them, okay, like, why did you give this document that, you know, label or that label? And the same applies here. So like, what's the agreement, and why there is so much disagreement on a specific query or case? And that could be very interesting and kind of like illuminating, like that you can go and drill into together with the team.